G'day everyone, I'm the Red Scar. This is Red Scar Gaming. Today is my summary of 8th draft. Had to think about that. It's a high number to count to. Anyway, 8th draft of Murders at Karlov Manor, and this time, I was using a Boros aggro deck. I've seen more aggressive decks, but this one was pretty low to the ground. There was a fair bit of removal actually, and uh, what could attack was pretty good at it, generally speaking. So yeah, I did ultimately win 2 games, lose 3, which yeah I was quite surprised about actually because look, while I know that I probably could have had some better cards, I'm pretty happy with what I got. So anyway, I'll do a summary of this deck and we'll talk about each card as I go through. Novice Inspector, I know is not exactly the super aggressive card, but it does have, in particular, it has the drawing ability. And there's actually several times that I was able to sacrifice an artifact, mainly for demand answers, which in that sense is a really good way to spend two mana. So Novice Inspector was good. I'd put it in this deck again, though in hindsight, I sort of wish I had another one. Goblin Mask Maker. I knew wasn't going to get much use out of his ability, and he is on the defensive. I would rather another Novice Inspector instead of Goblin Mask Maker in this deck at least. But it's sort of like I have to have a few 1-drops. Shock is just one of those cards that it's useful in pretty much every deck it's in, even if it's not exactly game winning, though it can be because you can do 2 damage to your opponent directly, which can be that little last step that you need to take. So yeah, I'll definitely go with that again. Assemble the players. As I said while I drafted, look, I wanted to be experimental with it. I wanted it to work a bit better, and it didn't work. Maybe if Assemble the Players was the first card that I drafted, then I maybe could have, what's the word I'm looking for, steered this deck in the right direction. But yeah, look, I did play it once, and it didn't do too badly, but yeah, I don't think I'll use it again. Market Watch Phantom, I think I actually played that every game, and it's still a pretty good card, pretty reliable card, for 2 mana anyway. Yeah, sure, it's not a win con, but it does do a fair bit of effort for 2 mana. Not on my watch is basically my one good defensive spell. Exile target attacking creature is certainly useful, though there was a few times actually that I got to play not on my watch, but I had where is it? I had push pull in my hand, so I sort of actually wish in that sense that it didn't exile target attacking creature. But look, I'll definitely settle for it. It's useful when it's useful. 2 copies of it is good enough. 3 would have been nice, I suppose, but yeah, it's uncommon, so it's a little hard to get 3 copies. Seasoned Consultant, yeah, it's probably a card that I didn't really want, actually, in hindsight. It's pretty good on the attack with 3 or more creatures, but I just didn't have the number of creatures on the board the vast majority of the time, actually, to trigger that. I only got to play it, I think it was only once, actually, but, and look, it wasn't good enough, I think, in that particular sense, and it's not aggressive, too, so I think for at least an aggro deck, I'd go a no. Demand Answers, as I said before, partly because of Novice Inspector, I actually got pretty good use out of it. There was a few times that I discarded a land to draw 2 cards because this deck is pretty low on the curve, with a few exceptions, but yeah, it's good. I'd definitely go with it again. Vengeful Tracker, as I said when I drafted it, I'm not gonna get its trigger all the time, but it might just be that win condition that I need, or have rather. So I think it was game 2 that my opponent actually did a lot of sacrificing of artifacts, and I didn't count, but he probably ultimately did 6 damage in 6 or 8 damage even in the attack, and my opponent sacking an artifact. So in that sense, it's a pretty damn good way to spend 2 mana. Though even just as a 2/2 for 2, a vanilla bear is not too bad. So too bad, get it? Anyway, due diligence is pretty good. I think probably in this kind of deck, it's maybe even better than I would otherwise have thought. Because I've got so many, at least comparatively, so many things that I can play turn 2, and in fact there was it game 3 or 4 maybe, that I played Novice Inspector turn 1, and it was Market Watch Phantom turn 2. Then I did due Diligence turn 3. So turn 3 I was able to basically press okay, not super powerful, but a pretty damn strong attack for turn 3. So it's very useful in that regard. I think it's also good because it gets Vigilance, and on being on the aggressive is great. But if you have to stop attacking for whatever reason, uh, as in on the defensive, you know what I mean. Pretend I'm saying something intelligent. Yeah. If you have vigilance, you get the advantage of attack and defense. Is ultimately what I'm trying to say there. I must be Australian. I can't talk properly. Anyway, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with due diligence. I wouldn't have minded probably a second one. Instead of probably Gryffindor Tracker actually, but anyway, Gearbane Orangutan. Once again, I'm sometimes I've had some really good success with Gearbane Orangutan. Sometimes I haven't. Game 4 in particular, I sort of in the power of hindsight, I made a bad decision in keeping it in hand instead of playing it, because I thought, okay, if my opponent plays an artifact, then I can get rid of it. But yeah, in that case, my opponent happened to attack pretty strongly the next turn. So yeah, I just wish I had a jump blocker basically. It's a pretty good way to spend 3 mana, and I was sort of hoping that it would get the trigger with assemble the players, but yeah, just didn't quite get that assemble the players as effectively as possible. Most of my experience with Gearbane Orangutan has been take 1, bin the rest, but yeah, maybe in this particular deck with assemble the players with the aggro version of it, and the ability to sacrifice a few artifacts too, it can actually be a better card. So yeah, I think in this version, I'm happy I got 2, but I didn't really get good use out of it. Gryffindor Tracker, look, I'm still not a huge fan of it. It has its moments, but 4 mana for a pretty easy to kill creature. Okay, yes, it has flying, and yes, it has its moments with the exile 2 target creatures from a single graveyard. But yeah, look, I really don't think I should get that again. It's just hasn't done its effort in this particular deck anyway. Hazda Vigilante is it is a really good card when you use it properly. I think in was it game 4? I got to play it in game 3 or 4. Anyway, one of my games I did get to play it. It's just that my opponent was going wide enough that he could sort of block everything, and take out whatever I on my sort of lower spectrum, that he could take out whatever was attacking anyway. So it would sort of waste it in that sense. It's still a good card, and I think I'd still go with it again. I just didn't quite get as much use out of it as I was hoping. Caught red-handed, I think 2 was probably too many. In fact, there was one game, I forget which one, that I ended the game that I lost with 2 of them in my hand, and I couldn't really do anything with it because my opponent was on lots of health, and yeah, sure, I would have got a free attack in, but then what? So Yeah, look, I probably shouldn't have gone 2. Yeah, look, actually, the more I talk about this deck, the more I'm thinking, yeah, why? How did I win even 2 games? Rubbelbelt Braggart is one of the sort of cards that I like having just one big dumb creature in each deck at least. And I had several actually. And Rubbelbelt Braggart is pretty useful with his suspected trigger. You got to be a little bit careful because if your opponent is able to play something big next turn, you sort of go, oh, just a second, I need to be able to block this. But now you can't. So yeah, you got to be a little bit careful with it. But he's certainly useful when he wants to be. Aurelia is essentially why this is a Boros deck because she was my first pick, first pack, and yeah, I did get to play her once, which I really wish that I got to play a few more times, especially on that trigger. But yeah, look, 4/4 Flying Vigilance haste is pretty dang good, regardless of what deck it's in. I on the one time that I did play her though, got to attack with her, and my opponent just went destroy target attacking creature. So that was basically lots of fun. Thank you very much. But I suppose maybe because if I got much more attack in, I would have won that game maybe. But yeah, I'd like to try using her again because she's very good. Push and pull. I used push a lot more than pull, but I mean it's 2 mana. It's useful. Pull. With the power of hindsight, I was hoping it would maybe be a win con, but yeah, look, I just didn't quite get as much use out of it as I wanted to. Though I think it's a good example of one of these split cards, regardless of what card you're looking at. If one side works for your deck, go for it, and you just happen to have some extra effects that you can pay for. That's great, more versatile. So I'm still happy with that pick. Just Pull didn't get quite as much use. The Fenestrated Phantom, I'm still not a huge fan of it, but in this particular case, maybe I should have gone one more of them. Though, yeah, because I was playing aggro, I didn't want to go too high on the mana cost. But as this graph demonstrates, I'm actually probably a bit too high on the mana cost. So, whereas something like Defenestrated Phantom, at least, I can play on turn 3 for a 2/2, and okay, sure, that's not a great card, but you can at least do something on turn 3, so maybe I should have grabbed another one of those. As far as lands are concerned, Mistveil Plains, I was mainly just hoping that I could test it out, but I didn't really get the opportunity. There was, I think, twice maybe, that I activated it. And look, I know it's not a win con, but hey, I may as well use the ability while I got it. Elegant Parlor, very good. I'd definitely go in pretty much any Boros deck. And Escape Tunnel, similar reason, grab any card that you need. Though, when I mentioned in the draft, I was sort of thinking I should probably actually drop a land because I was pretty low on the curve, and I had a couple of ways of whether it's drawing cards or looking for land or something like that. So yeah, maybe I should have dropped a land, or maybe even 2. That game 5 actually I ultimately lost because I drew, was it 3 or 4 lands in a row, which look is a bit of bad luck, and it happens regardless of what card or format or deck you're playing. But yeah, it annoyed the hell out of me, to put it lightly. Okay, as far as the other cards, I am pretty happy that I didn't go any black cards, because look, Polygraph Orb is not great. A Repeat Offender can be alright in the right circumstances, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't have splashed black for it. And Toxin Analysis, similar story there. Convenient Target, I did think about. It's pretty good way to spend 1 mana, and because you've got that 3 mana ability, so you can return it from your graveyard, it can be a bit later game, or give you that little bit of an edge. So, and keeping in mind too that you can actually enchant an opponent's creature so it can't block, which, yeah, maybe in the power of hindsight I should have gone with that. Let's say convenient target instead of one caught red-handed would maybe have been good. Rubble Belt Braggart, still happy with it, but yeah, as I said during the draft, look, I don't think I need 3, especially if I'm trying to play an aggro deck. Cruel Whipcracker is fun, but yeah, just not in the right colours for me. Scene of the Crime I did think about, but because it enters tapped, I can't risk it too much, I don't think. I've got, 2 cards in here already that tapped, and that essentially enters tapped. So, yeah, I'm glad I didn't go another one. Thinking Cap, yeah, it's alright in a detective deck, but yeah, this isn't a detective deck. With the power of hindsight, maybe Case of the Shattered Pact would have been actually pretty good, because I would have then I could have probably got away with getting rid of more lands for Case of the Shattered Pact. Yeah, basically, so I could make sure I've got fewer lands in deck, basically. Drop maybe even 2 lands in the combination of all the draws and Case of Shattered Pact. Yeah, maybe even 2 lands for 2 Case of the Shattered Pact. But yeah, you got to be a bit careful dropping 2 lands. Though yeah, even with 2 mana, it's pretty good. It's pretty reliable. So feel free to disagree with me. I know I wouldn't have got the 2 solve or the solved ability rather. So yeah, it's just the 2 mana. I maybe should have used it. Gravestone Strider, yeah, I stand by it. It's not a great card. It's not a great way to spend 2 mana, and I was trying to be more aggressive anyway. And Magnetic Snuffler, I did think about, but I don't think I would have got much trigger as far as being able to sack artifacts or anything like that. So it's ultimately just a 4/4 vanilla creature. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. Ultimately, I think it's not so much that I drafted the wrong, that I put the wrong cards from my sideboard out of the deck or anything. There's a few cards, I think, off the top of my head, like I vaguely remember another Defenestrated Phantom that I turned down for something else, and there's probably a few more cases of that I think ultimately I just drafted a bit badly. Not so much that I picked the wrong cards, as in Defenestrated Phantom's terrible, and okay, there's probably a few cards that are like Gryffindor Tracker or something like that. But yeah, there's nothing jumping out at me as far as really bad. Assemble the Players I won't try again. Though, yeah, as I said, if it's first pick, first pack, you could probably build around it a bit better. I think it was pack 2 actually, just from the off the top of my head. So, but yeah, ultimately I think convenient target instead of Gryffindor Tracker, and probably caught red-handed for Rubble Braggart if I absolutely had to, and 2 land for 2 Cases of the Shattered Pact is maybe the way I should go next time. But yeah, feel free to disagree with me. Feel free to learn from my mistakes. Please learn from my mistakes, and I hope I learn from my mistakes. Thanks for watching. See you next time.